I mentioned in my Z5 II video that Nikon has simplified the buying experience for their full-frame cameras. I encourage you to watch that video because it's really good. But in case you missed it, the full-frame line looks like this. Z5 II, still shooters. Z6 III, video shooters. Z8, jack of all trades. Z9, flagship. I then said there's still gaps in there, subject for another time. Well, that time is now. In a nutshell, I'm happy with where we are, and technically, Nikon can stick to that paradigm and improve each of them accordingly in each version moving forward, while sticking to the still, video, jack of all trades, and flagship paradigm, probably with pretty good success, and they'll stay in the same kind of market share that they've already got. Everything else besides the Z5, 6, 8, and 9 lines, I'm going to view as niche because the basics, Nikon has kind of already got them covered. With that, we have a couple of niche cameras already, like the ZF. That's the fashion accessory camera. It's not necessary, but it looks really cool, performs really dang well, and most importantly, it's good old-fashioned fun. See what I did there? Old-fashioned? Because it's retro? Get it? Jeez, tough crowd. Anyway, the point is, with the basics covered, we now have room for niche things like the ZF. Another current niche kind of camera is the Z30. It's got some pretty good video features for its price point, if I'm being honest, but it's kind of like a vlogger camera. Doesn't even have a viewfinder at all, and most photographers don't enjoy shooting from the back screen all the time. So it's actually kind of annoying from a photography standpoint. As soon as the sun comes out, you're kind of guessing where your composition is with the sun beating on that back screen. You can't see it. And so while it does fill a role, it's niche, and I'd guess there aren't a lot of people coming into Nikon for that camera because that slot in the market was filled by other brands long before that camera existed. Technically, GoPro and DJI little pocket cameras were around before that camera. So nobody's coming to Nikon specifically for the Z30. You get my point? Now, for what it's worth, I just had a nice coughing fit. That's really hot. I'll be fine, keep your seats. Continuing on, we have the niche Z50 line, the current model being the Z50 II. Now, for what it's worth, I think this is the answer to the next segment's point, but people aren't convinced. It's an APS-C, which to me is important in another way, and we'll get to that later in the video, but this camera is not that. It's way too expensive for a beginner because it's priced at its performance, but somehow not high enough performance for the smaller pro APS-C consumer. It actually exists in this kind of territory that if I had it my way, I wouldn't even consider it necessary and can sometimes feel like a money grab. That's the feature step-up model of the D3000, 5000, and 7000 arrangement. Any one of those could have easily disappeared, and you could probably find a way to successfully market the others. To be clear, unpopular opinion, I could care less if Nikon ever does a pro APS-C. I've heard over and over that the D500 was well received, but it didn't sell that incredibly well at launch. I don't know. I can't find any information really on sales numbers, but over time, it did definitely become a cult classic. Do you agree? Good. What's a cult classic? It's something that the majority of people don't like or don't care about, but a small following adores, like the movie Biodome. I love it, but it was kind of a flop. However, we can't deny that because of the D500's success that came over time, there are more people demanding a Z version. I still consider it a niche camera because I do not think that it is entirely necessary, but and I also don't think it would sell as well as the people demanding that it exist think that it will sell. All of that is okay because we are in the territory now. We are in niche territory now. Basics are covered, remember? So the Z90 seems possible now. Something significantly better than the Z52 apparently would be necessary, even though that camera is already significantly better than pretty much any DSLR we've had as far as speed goes. Even though I don't care about owning such a camera, I certainly do want to try one if Nikon comes out with one. I want the argument to be over, and I'm sure it'll be a super awesome camera if they do put that out. I want people to have what they want, and now that the basic consumer demands are met in cameras, all that is out of the way. Nikon has time to satisfy the smaller but still important consumer who's after a Z90. I've talked about this to exhaustion, but we're going to do it again. I'd love to see a high megapixel model. No, not for me necessarily, but for a smaller group of consumers. We actually have the perfect slot for it too already, the Z7 line. The Z7 line is in a really weird spot right now. So far, the Z7s have been 45 megapixels, and while you can make the argument that a 45 megapixel camera that's less expensive than the Z8 and isn't as fast makes it perfect for like a landscape camera, I just don't know how you keep people buying a Z8 if you have a Z5 II moment with the Z7 III. Check this out. The Z5 launched at $1,400. The Z5 II launched at $1,700. The Z7 II launched at $3,000, so it's reasonable to assume that if it launched today, the Z7 III would launch at $3,300. The Z8 launched at $4,000. For a $700 spread, you cannot intentionally cripple another 45 megapixel camera to not be as good as the Z8 because YouTubers will shred it to pieces. Nor can you make another 45 megapixel camera as improved as the Z5 II is in comparison to the Z5 and still expect people to buy a Z8. So the solution is make a Z7 III 60-something megapixels for $3,300. Mechanical shutter, video features only on level with what's current at that time of launch. The Z5 II is our photo-first camera. The Z7 III is as juicy and incredible as a photo-focused camera can get. Here's what I think. Studio people will think they need it. Macro people legitimately will need it. Landscapers will love it, but not necessarily like the digital noise from 60 megapixels, but they will later discover that denoising technology has gotten real dang good, and a few crazy cropping wildlife folks will probably like this camera as well, maybe. Personally, I love the current 45 megapixel sensors Nikon is putting in the Z8 and Z9, which is why I have them both. So I'm good. Honestly, most of you are too, which is why this camera that I'm talking about doesn't need to happen, but Nikon can and should now that all the basics are covered. I mean, Sony has a high megapixel model. Come on, Nikon. Actually, of all the cameras I've listed, that has the highest probability of me actually getting one, even though I don't need it. 1,000 times I've said Nikon needs a birthday and Christmas present priced camera kit. This shouldn't even be a niche camera. It shouldn't even be mentioned in this video because it's more like just like a straight up gap in the line. Personally, I think this should have happened a very long time ago, Nikon. And no, I don't think the Z30 fills this need because it's niche on its own, like I mentioned earlier, and nor does the Z50 line because it's still too expensive for this category. And honestly, probably too good of a camera for this category. What I'm talking about is a true D3000 series type Z camera. Call it the Z10 or something. This would be a camera that pretty much never gets bought new on its own body only, but rather always in a kit, like on Black Friday, right, for upcoming Christmas. It has to have a great rendering sensor, just like the D3000, and it's okay if it's not a stellar camera otherwise, because it's priced low enough that a normal working family can get it for their kid for their birthday or for Christmas. Maybe it's the only thing they get for Christmas because the kit is $600, but they still get a camera. By the way, this is the market for impulse buyers and people who are not photographers, who are like about to go on vacation, right? They're going to impulse buy something because they just don't want to use their iPhone. They want to feel important having a camera. This is American consumerism we're talking here, Nikon. It needs to look like a real camera, not like the Z30, and Nikon actually already has the DX lenses to include in the kit. It can seriously be thin and cheap feeling or whatever else it takes to make it cheap enough that someone can get it for their very first camera. The idea isn't to sell them a camera today, but to sell them the system that they're in the future. Their very first camera is selling them their next upgrade and all the lenses that they lust after they've fallen in love with photography. That's exactly how Nikon got me with the Nikon D3200, and that's how you build long-term customers, or at the very least, lock someone in the ecosystem due to finance or familiarity. I know that sounds really dirty, but that is what all of these camera brands do. But at the very least, people will follow the majority and not stick to photography. And Woohoo! Nikon made some money right now, and the used market and pawn shops become absolutely filthy with even cheaper starter cameras. I want to conclude this segment by mentioning that I do not need to see multiple crop sensor bodies like, say, we did in the DSLR days. Most people don't go from crop sensor to pro crop sensor like a D3000 to D500. They go from crop sensor to full frame. I think it's reasonable to keep it to an entry Z10 and entice users to upgrade to the Z5 II. The Z5 II performance is certainly leagues above the D610 and launched $300 cheaper. Where does that leave the Z50 II? Well, kill it off or agree with me that it is plenty good enough to be the Z500 that people are begging for. I said that, by the way, just so people would fight in the comments, so enjoy. There's still a little room left for some niche action. A direct competitor to the Sony FX30. Call it the Nikon ZX or the Nikon Red ZX or something like that. This camera is totally video focused, not like the Z6 line, which I've dubbed in this video as the video focused line moving forward. Really more of a hybrid thing the Z6 III is. This ZX or Red ZX, whatever, would be a camera pretty much just limited to shooting video. Yes, it would do some stills, but nobody would really consider it a good option for photography. It's totally for videographers, marketed to videographers. It would be compact and full of all of the red technology that Nikon bought. It will finally run video to both card slots simultaneously and have some built-in features focused on preventing overheating. I'm talking the works. Price? I really have like no idea, but who cares because it's niche. Specifically, I'd want it so good that there is actually an incentive to not consider Sony because Nikon owns Red. So you have something to upgrade to later if you want to get into box style cine cameras. Z mount now, Z mount in the future. So to wrap this up, we have Z5 line, stills focus, Z6, video / hybrid, Z8, jack of all trades, Z9 flagship, and for niche cameras, we have ZF, fun accessory, Z30, vlogging, Z90, pro APS-C, Z7 line, highest megapixel, Z10, beginner, ZX, serious video. Let me know a niche slot that you'd like to see filled in the comments. Link in the description. If you're shopping, I get a 2% commission if you use it. I'm Z-Wade, the Z-Wade, and Z-Wade Photo. Stay sharp, YouTube. That was an absolute disaster. 2 memory cards, 3 batteries dying, phone keeps ringing and dinging, and God.